Record. All right. Hello, everybody. This is the Zero Points podcast. My name is Richard Sandelins. Our guest today is Eric Rains. And I don't know how to introduce you to the people that I know. But I know that you do a lot of healing work.
Mhm.
Essentially, you help people heal themselves. I've had a session with you. It was very helpful. And you're concentrating a lot on the breath. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I'm sure there's other stuff, and I guess, do you focus on ancestral healing as well?
Oh yeah. Oh no, we go everywhere. The energy, it's something that when you start to understand how the body is physically blocked up, simply from that space right there, going in and exploring it, if you follow where it goes to, oftentimes you end up in some places that are not here and now. You can definitely find some the unprocessed emotional trauma that gets passed down through the generations. This is definitely something that creates an issue in the body right here and now. And if you want to take care of that problem now, then you have to go back to where it comes from and clean out the foundation. So yeah, we do all kinds of interesting stuff over here.
Do you have a team, or is it essentially just you?
Yeah, me and my
Yep.
wife.
Oh, you and your wife. Okay. Yeah, because
Mhm.
I'm hearing we, and I'm like, you and your guides or their guides.
No,
Uh, uh,
just me and my wife, the one who keeps me human and make sure
yeah.
that I don't lose my head. So
Yeah. So can we kind of go over like your early life and into how you kind of got into this work? I know some of it kind of centers
Okay.
around 2012 because you kind of had like an awakening there. But
Yeah.
what were you like as a child? And then
Uh,
when did like this work start to become your thing?
okay. So as a child, I'm almost 100% that I'm autistic. I haven't taken any of the testing or anything like that, but a lot of the traits that fall in line with autism are a lot of the things that I had to deal with as a kid. And so, I was really intelligent, but at the same time, I was just completely and totally oblivious to like social cues or, emotional intelligence or anything like that. And it was really interesting. It felt really kind of like being an outsider, I guess you could say. I would see
Yeah, I
everybody
relate to that.
uh, experiencing things, and I was like, well, all I can do is just think about it, and like I can see it and I can tell it's happening. I just don't know how to make it happen. And there was like some learning disabilities and stuff like that. But I mean, for the most part, I was like a voracious reader, avid fantasy and sci-fi, and
Oh, I love
and
that
I would
stuff.
just, oh yeah, no, I'm still like, I mean, I'm listening to audiobooks right now about like dragons in space. It's
Oh my God. I'd so much rather, I wish that was my life, Like I
oh
wish
yeah,
my
yeah,
life was a
no.
fantasy.
Oh no, well, mine is. So,
Well,
it's one of those things where it all kind of to bleed through. But so anyways, so as a child, I didn't really recognize how disconnected I was. And, coming back from my perspective now and understanding, like my dad left when I was 2. I was molested as a kid. My mom, she raised me and my sister, and she was a teacher who sometimes she'd be working like 15, 16-hour days, and,
mhm.
she was a single parent doing the best that she could. And it was just, there was a lot of trauma that I didn't even really think about. I thought
Yeah.
everything was normal. I thought it was all, fine. And I didn't realize how much it was actually shutting me down. And
Yeah.
so I kind of went through my life inside of this space of numbness until about maybe 18 or 19, something like that. That's when things started to take the turn for the dark. My dad, he's God bless him. He was an interesting person. He ran with the Hell's Angels for about 20 years, and
Mm.
he was just he was not your average duck.
Yeah.
And there's a lot, on the ancestral levels that we were just talking about that came through from him, that I never even realized. And addiction being first and foremost, and I'm Irish and Native American, so alcoholism and me, we were like that. So and I just kind of spiraled into this path of the numb wasn't numb anymore. I could actually feel the hurt inside of it. And so
Ah,
I was just trying to numb it again, and I just went through a series of relationships where, we were not good to each other. And it got steadily darker and darker and darker. To the point where, like my whole life, I'd been doing martial arts, by the way, since I was about 5. And to
Nice.
the point to where, I was actually going into the military thinking that I was here to be the most lethal person on the planet. And I had
Oh,
everything
wow.
set up for Army Rangers with the special forces transfer into the Navy SEALs.
Wow.
And like at the last minute, just long story short, a lot of stuff happened that I just wasn't able to go and do that. And
That was around
um,
19? Like right when you're getting out of high school?
yeah, it was about
Yeah.
maybe 19 or 20. It was right
Yeah.
around in that area.
Yeah.
And I still, I wasn't able to legally buy beer yet. So, it was at that point in time when, that was the real big transition. And then when that wasn't able to happen, I was like, all right, well, I don't even know what else I'm going to do. And so I just started to, kind of float along, just, drinking my way through life. And there was more than one time I honestly should have died. Like there was, there were times where I was so drunk when I was driving that, like the 3-lane highway was one lane and it was all mine, and I had this little car that it didn't look like much, but I could get it up to about 120, no problem. And,
Wow.
that's about how fast I drove everywhere. I didn't really care. And it was about, yeah, it was right about then when, I had those fantasies of like just driving into the guardrail or going into the opposite side of the freeway and just, well, I don't know what would happen. Let's see,
Yeah.
and it was a really bad place to be. And it all kind of culminated with the lady that I'd been with. We'd been together for probably about 4 years at that time. No, 5 years at that time. And she'd been in and out of jail because of DUIs and whatnot. And, uh, we had a daughter about 4.5 years into it. And so I think at this time she was about 9 months old. And like I'd been going through a bit of an awakening beforehand. I was trying to really trying to shift things and turn stuff around and try to make something better of my life. And I'd been, getting some really good progress on that. And I had some real big epiphanies of, seeing the darkness for what it is. I created it because, I'm focusing on it. I'm not redirecting myself, and if I focus on something different, I can create that and it'll be a lot better, So I had all these epiphanies that were starting to go on. And it actually culminated one night where I was working graveyard and I woke up at about 11 in the afternoon, which was, like probably like 1, 2 in the morning for my switch schedule right there. And our daughter was screaming, and I wake up and I go and I get her and I get her some food, and I realized that the lady that I was with at the time, she was passed out drunk on the couch, and my daughter hadn't eaten. Her diaper was just an absolute atrocious mess.
Oh, man.
And like something snapped inside of me, and it was like, well, it's not even about me anymore. And I'm looking at my poor innocent little baby, sitting here screaming because she's hungry and her butt hurts, and like,
Yeah.
and I was just like, okay, this has to change. And like I ended up leaving. I had to stay for about a month and a half trying to go through the courts to, get the okay to take my daughter and whatnot. And so I ended up moving back into my mom's house at 26 years old with my 9-month-old daughter. And I had to sell everything. I had nobody to watch my baby, and I couldn't work. And, I was waiting for, the courts to tell me that I could go. Otherwise I would have been there already. I had to sell my truck. All my stuff I had to pawn, and, just making sure that we could survive up until we got the okay to go ahead. And then I did. And I had nothing. I had to get on food stamps. I had to get on welfare. And, for a person who'd always, even, not working the best of jobs in the world, I'd always paid my own way. I always, carried my own weight. And here I was, not just in that choice to where I could have done without it, but my baby, like what am I going to do? Like I had to step up to that plate and just get it done. And, all my money went to paying for, gas and the rent for my mom, which was only $200, but which was almost most of my money anyway. And then food stamps. And so I literally had nothing to do except go to massage school, which, I literally hit that rock bottom space right there. But I was going to massage school because I was trying to, find that space inside of me that felt good. And it felt good when I helped people, feel better. And so I felt better because of that. And I was vicariously trying to, like find something, and so I was going to school, and then I literally had no money or no time for anything. And so You know, a lot of people in that situation would be like, oh my God, poor me. And I was that way for probably about 2 days. But then I was like, wait a second, I have all this time to work on myself. Woohoo! You know?
Right.
And it turned into like going to massage school. It really started to open up. Like with the martial arts, it gave me an internal understanding of where my body was and, you know, distance and whatnot. But with the massage school, it started to give me an understanding of, more importantly, how the body worked to help it instead of just like hit it, you know, and hurt it in the most effective place possible.
Yeah, right.
You know, or a joint lock that
Take
can
it
pull
down,
a tendon
yeah.
out, you know? Yeah, you know.
Where's it vulnerable? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it started to show me all of these tensions and spaces inside of myself that I didn't ever know were there, that I was, you know, just like kind of unconsciously holding my shoulders up towards my ears, or, you know, my pelvis was tilted backwards. And I would start to see this in other people. And I started to get this eye to where I could see somebody walk and recognize, like, oh, okay, so the pelvis is tilted this way. All right, so if we pulled this that direction, got these muscles to let go, things would let go. So I started to like do that back to myself. I started to reverse engineer it with yoga and self-massage. And it just randomly started to spiral into, God, what happened? I ended up getting a Reiki session because the lady that I was with, she got out of jail and she was, you know, coming back in, and like some big old stuff happened, and I made a big old whiny post on Facebook about it.
Yeah.
And a friend of mine, she actually offered me a Reiki session. I was like, oh, I remember Reiki. Like I did it like when I was 15 or something like that. I was like, yeah, let's do that. And it was crazy. She popped a hole in my heart, and like my heart started to just like dribble out. I don't know. I even to this day, I don't even know how to explain it. It was like the sensation of just like,
yeah.
Like, it was the weirdest feeling, but it was like I was observing it go, and it wasn't
like your heart was melting.
Yeah, it was weird. It was like there was like an encasement around my heart that got popped, and then it started to drain out. And like the draining sensation was like crying as it was leaving my body. And it was the weirdest sensation I've ever felt before. But then what was left over was like the sensation of, oh wow, I actually feel pretty good.
Yeah.
You know, and so like I started to move this sensation of feeling good into the body when I was doing my yoga and stretching, and it turned into like this really random muscle awareness that I could start to communicate and say, let go. But I wouldn't say like, you know, quote, let go. I would feel the sensation of letting go and make the good sensation start. And then it was like my muscle would melt. And like if I was, you know, stretching my hamstring and my head was like this far away from my knee, bam, I'd be like, ow, wait a second. It's not supposed to do that, you know, everything lets go. And then I smack myself on the floor or whatever. And it's like all of a sudden I have like this crazy contortionist level flexibility.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, that's really interesting. And so I start, you know, just really kind of figuring it out. And I was working for an applied kinesiologist at the time. He's a chiropractor who muscle tests and uses nutrition to get the body back into alignment. And if I wasn't, you know, working on somebody with massage, I was following him around, and it just started to go back and forth to plugging and playing and like kind of recognizing like, okay, so that's those connections they use. All right, well, why don't we put it back over here into the massage? Why don't we try to get that muscle to let go instead of pushing the bone back into place and then making the muscle let go? You know, like, let's just see what happens. And I just started to experiment and play around and, you know, really use my body and other people's bodies as like this foundation to, you know, really just explore. Like I was having a blast doing it. And then one day, the chiropractor I was working for, he's on the phone and I see him muscle testing. He does this thing where, you know, he's testing the strength of his fingers, and then all of a sudden it'll lock, and that'll be the number that he's thinking of or whatever. And then he's like, okay, yeah, no, so that's 3 a day, 2 times a day. All right, so yeah, no, that'll be that supplement, and just take it 3 times a day, twice a day, and you should be fine. Get a hold of me in 3 days and let me know how you feel. And I was like, did you just muscle test for somebody on the phone after he hung up? He's like, oh yeah, it was my friend in New York. And I was like, wait, what? Like, how does this work? And he was Mormon, you know, and like they were some of the sweetest people that I ever met in my life. And he's okay with letting things be a mystery. And he straight up told me, he's like, listen, Eric, the good Lord gave us abilities, and we know when they work because we can tell from the results that they do work. Do I need to know how it works? Nope, I don't. Yeah. It's a miracle. That's all I need to know. Good Lord gave me this gift, and that's all I need to know. And I was like, man, that is so admirable. I can't leave that alone. And so I started to muscle test everything. And so, because at first I thought it was just, like we're just going to see what the body's telling us to get this to go back into alignment or what needs to release. But all of a sudden, I had an ability to take a yes or a no answer to the entire universe, because he was like, yeah, you can ask anything. Like, I mean, you'll get a positive or a negative response for everything. And I was like, wait, so I can literally talk to God and have like a conversation and get yes or no answers. And he goes, well, I never really thought about it that way, but I mean, I guess you could. And so it was
It's a way to bypass your mind. Really.
Exactly.
You're asking the nervous system.
Right to the body.
Yeah. Yeah.
You go right to the body. You go right directly to that musculature.
And what you said earlier that really, because I'm seeing somebody who's like, I mean, he's a doctor, but he does muscle testing and nutritional testing. And yeah, he's just like results. Yeah. I don't care if it makes sense. I don't care if there's like been a paper that's been written about it. I don't care if it's like some peer reviewed thing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's results driven. And I'm like, why isn't the whole world like that?
Exactly. Exactly. The results are the only thing that matter, like, and we have so many religions around the world telling us in some variable form of by their fruits, you will know them, and like, there's just such a blank spot in awareness of the collective right now. It's really funny when you just kind of objectively step back and look at it, but, oh God. Anyways, so about 6 months I went muscle testing everything. I wouldn't even eat something without muscle testing it. Like, should I eat this or should I eat this? What would be more beneficial for me? And it got to the point to where it was almost like I would understand the answer to the question before I would ever even muscle test it. And I stopped muscle testing and I would sit with that energy. And it's like, this is what truth feels like. Like there's a solidity to it. Like there's a strength to it. Like I feel strong inside of this. It's like righteous truth. Okay. All right. That makes sense. But then like falsehood, it's like, I'm weak. It's draining. It's like something big and heavy, that somebody throws at you and you go to catch it expecting it to be big and heavy, but then you realize it's like completely hollow and you're like, oh, there's nothing to it. It's like a very distinctive sensation.
I have an interesting question for you. I just had this conversation with somebody, but we're talking about doing the muscle testing, and people have different ways to like muscle test for themselves. Like some people do the finger thing, or some people will do something with their tongue. But this lady was saying that
back and forth.
That's what she was talking about. And she was saying that when she feels like she's pulled forward, that's a yes, or that's truth. And if you feel like you're set back, that's false. But she was talking to someone that thought the opposite. She thought that if you were like sinking back, that was a yes. And if you were being pulled forward, that was a false. So what do you think? What do you think about that? Is it just different?
You're talking about the exact same energy. They're just responding to it differently. Like this is so subjective. You want to do what's the strongest for you. And what might be a yes for somebody might not be a yes for you.
Okay.
And it's when we start comparing ourselves to other people, that's where we get the clashes, because it's like, well, I feel this sensation right here. And they say that they do that when they feel that sensation. Well, it's your body. Like, so I'm allergic to things that you're not, you're allergic to things that I'm not, like we're completely different.
So truth won't feel the same for everybody.
Truth feels completely the same. You might respond to it differently though.
Oh, your body might respond to it differently. Okay. All right. So the energy of
because
truth,
I mean, yes is yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that, there's no way to say that yes feels differently. Like, I mean, we can talk about like, the nuances with your eyes might be different than mine. And what I call blue, everybody else calls blue too. And so you call it blue, but you might be seeing green or vice versa. Like that's something that's subjective. We can't tell what is happening there on that level. But I mean, a yes is a yes and a no is a no. Like, it's an energy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so can you help me? Because I still feel like I doubt kind of like what's true and false. I just kind of, I don't know if there's just a mental block. I mean, because the world is nuts now. So it's like, how can you tell what's true and what's false? Just like
especially right now. Now's the perfect time. How else are we going to practice discernment when we have absolute just hogwash flying around everywhere right now? Like, and this is where we have to really we've got to be responsible with it. You know, we can't just say that feels like truth and then not investigate it. Because if we're going off of our gut instinct and we're not allowing our heart to temper our gut instinct with our logical thinking mind, then what we're doing is we're reacting. You know, we're not allowing ourselves to sit with the information and respond to it and form an opinion, observe, and see the true results of it. Because sometimes it takes time for the results to come to the surface. And if you feel that this is truth and you investigate it, guess what? You know, like you're oftentimes going to be proven right. But at the same time, if you feel like this is truth and you investigate it and you're like, oh man, this is crap, but I think it's truth. I feel it. I feel it. You know, like this is where we have to find that discernment right there. Because if we feel like it's truth and yet we can see for a fact that it's not, you know, that's cognitive dissonance.
Well,
we gotta observe facts for what they are, facts.
And it's like the paradigm that we're in, and just looking back through history, we have upheld falsehoods, and we've been taught, you know, teachers and adults and politicians, that this is the way it is.
Yeah.
But like when you feel it, because I guess I was trying to like, what does truth feels like a life supporting energy to me, and false feels like it doesn't support life.
Yeah, exactly. It's very draining, you know, and one of the ones that I used for muscle testing was my finger, because, you know, I used to rock climb and, you know, there's a lot of strength in the fingers and you can tell the nuances and the variances of what's going on. And so what I would do is I would just pull as hard as I can and say, my name is Eric. And yes, in this incarnation, my name is Eric. And it's really hard for me to pull that apart right there. However, my name is Eric, but I am 13 feet tall and I can't hold on to that for the life of me, you know? And it's like, I feel that weakness deep, deep inside. And like that right there, that's a sensation that there's no strength to that. But however, if I'm sitting there and I'm holding on to something and my life is depending on it, you better believe I'm going to be sitting there thinking my name is Eric other than 13 feet tall, you know?
Right.
Like, because there's a lot more strength to it. Your body feels it. It responds differently to it. You know, and it's the same with anything, you know, say for instance, that your truth is I'm getting my friend out of this car, even though the car is on top of them, you're going to lift that car up. You know, like that's how it works.
Yeah. Well, man, that's really good. I hope people listen to this, because that whole thing, I mean, I wish there were classes like this that you had to take when you were in school, you know?
Me too. Well, I'm actually trying to develop something like that right now. We've got a friend of ours who she's a head of a major foster kid development company, and like they do education and stuff like that, and bring in stuff for them. We're actually trying to put together a course for them, but you know, with the whole quarantine and everything going on right now, everything's been kind of shut down. So we're moving forward with that as soon as we can, because we do need this. We could literally eradicate so much in just one generation if we had an aware generation that knew on this level what is possible and what they can do. And, you know, I mean, you felt the energy, you know, you've had the session, like all you have to do is just know how to do it. You know how to activate it. And then knowing this, especially as a child, this turns into something that's fun that you do in the background. You know, it becomes ingrained and it becomes a part of you. And then you can't help but have the next generation much, much more aware than the one before it. And you can't help but raise an even bigger, more aware generation.
Right.
They can't help it, you know?
Right. And then the other thing is just like the know-how, but then the practice. And that's where I kind of get held up sometimes. I'm just thinking like in my own breathing practices, like I'll be having an off day for whatever reason, and I know that I could do my breathing. Like I know it, it's right there. But I'll still wait a few hours to do it. And I'm just like, what is that? What is this?
Sometimes you really have to sit in the poop to realize it's
maybe I just have to suffer a little more until something clicks in my mind. But
well, you know, like if you were actually done with it, you'd take care of it, you know, like maybe there's something to be learned inside of it. I personally, I don't run from the things that don't feel bad. I've made a career out of feeling uncomfortable, you know, but it's discomfort in a space for the greater good. You know, if we make that nasty feeling so strong that it sparks inside of us that we can go directly into the core of why it's there and then release it because it's right there on the surface, then we don't have to deal with it again, you know. And if there's something that keeps on coming up, that means that there's It's almost like something noxious buried underneath the swamp water, and as it decomposes, little bits and pieces of it rise up to the surface, and then you can, smell it at the surface of the place right there, and it's down there, but you're not going to get to it unless you pull it up to the surface.
Yeah. Have you ever ran into clients that kind of get stuck with, like, well, there's a plan that's bigger than me. Like God really has this all under control. So I'm just kind of waiting for him. That seems like it could be a trap. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. See, I'm a firm believer that we have to save ourselves, and a lot of people don't like hearing it, but if there is some magical white knight out there who's coming to save us, bonus, because I'm going to build a world where I don't need to be saved, and I'm going to pass this off to my children. I'm going to give this to as many people as I possibly can. And, that's the end goal right there. And if there is somebody out there who's working on that same pathway, you better believe that we're going to pick up, their burdens, and hopefully they can help us with ours too. We're going to do this together. And if they're better at this than I am, you better believe I'm going to be somebody who's tooting their horn,
Right.
And it's about getting to a space to where we can move forward and create something new. And it's not going to happen if we're focusing on the way that the old world works right now.
Right.
It's kind of unfortunate because that's where the problem is, and that's where the attention is drawn right now. But I mean, look what's happening with our attention drawn on the problem. The world's nuts. The world's absolutely crazy right now. And all we're doing is focusing on the problem and yelling about it. And, with the energy work, what we do is we end up creating a solution for the problem. We have to know where the problem is, but then we create the counteraction and the balm, the transmutation, the soothing agent that then cleans it out. And that's what we have to be doing in the world right now, because it's going to come to a head just like it does inside of the body. It's always as above, so below. And I would much rather see humanity as a whole go through this transition that we are going through. There's no getting over this. And it's either going to be, kicking and screaming or singing joyfully,
Right.
And whatever nuance inside of that. And it's an uncomfortable time right now, but we have to start focusing on the solution. And the solution is not the problem. The solution is going in and finding a space that's based in love, that's based in connection, that's based in community, and building something together and making something so beautiful and self-sustaining that it can spill out into the world around it. And that's how we do the body.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I hear what you're saying about kind of having a positive waypoint to focus on. And I'm just kind of thinking of like what I've seen politically and just like the whole kind of good and evil concept, because I feel like there are many good people that are really focused on what they think is evil. And I'm wondering if that is, like I just know a lot of people that think we need to find what's evil and weed it out, kill it or completely. I'm just wondering if that's not the right mindset to have.
Well,
it's a hard one, right?
Well, I've dealt with this one before. Let's go big. Let's talk about pedophilia. Are we gonna kill all of these people? Is that what's gonna save all of the children? Is that what's going to end this? I'm telling you right now, it's not going to. And if anything, it's going to make it worse, because as we empty these souls out of these bodies, they are now going to be much more angrier, much more, you took away their right to live, like that right there. It's trauma. And I don't care what you try to say about it. When they come back, they're going to be even more traumatized, because you can kill people all you want. They're just going to keep on coming back until they figure out the lessons that they came here to learn. And if they have that predisposition towards wanting to have sex with children, there's nothing that's going to stop that. And they're going to keep on being born into the population, and more importantly, right into the households of the people who killed them. And so like this right here is where we've got to really start recognizing it's not about eliminating the physical plane. It's about healing the energy of where this is all coming from. There's people out running around in the world right now who think it's perfectly okay to run up on people and shoot them right in the face. And there's no problem. They have no remorse whatsoever. That right there is a sickness, that it's not something physical. That right there is a product of environment. That's a product of energy. That's a product of ancestral programming. That's a product of genocide and war and rape that's happened for generation after generation after generation after generation. And we are not going to fix this by rounding all of these people up and putting them onto an island so they can kill each other off, or hanging them, or opening up, the guillotine factory. None of that will fix any of this. The only thing that will fix this is by us going into that darkness and that rot that's inside of the human heart that allows these things to become possible and make them something that's okay to do, and fixing that there. That's the only way to do this. Now, however, this does not mean that we are doormats where we completely and totally lie down and let whatever happen to us happen to us. No, we step up and say, this is not allowed. And this is coming from a boundary of love, but there are consequences inside of love. I will not interact with you, and I will make sure that you can't interact with me. And if I have to imprison you inside of this place to where you're not a danger to other people, so be it. But I'm not going to treat you like an animal inside of there, which is where we come into the problems with the jails right now. So there's all kinds of nuances to this. But we could force these people who are violent criminal offenders, murderers and rapists, who have now taken away the rights of other people's existence. Now we take away their right to live freely. We could force these guys to live on, a little plot in a forestry land someplace that, it's connected to other plots of forestry land, and it's one giant preserve that's guarded. And we could force these people to live by themselves with nothing but seeds and garden tools. And, what are you going to do? You're stuck here for the rest of your life. You're going to turn it into something beautiful, and you're going to start to heal yourself. And from there, you might be able to start going in and talking to people and, making more of an entrance into society. But if that's all you get in this lifetime and you die inside of that place, so be it. You're not going to die inside of a space where you're angry and hateful and you want to come back and wreck shop, because then you're going to come back in. You might even have a loving family that can help you out with those dark impulses that you have. This is where we have to go, because it's not about, we can't separate ourselves. We have to include, because it's all one thing, you know? As much as we try to look at it as separate points and say red is different than blue, well, it's all light.
One of the things I feel like we're stuck on, and I guess this gets into beliefs, because I know, it makes sense to me that reincarnation is definitely something that happens, but I know that there's a huge segment of the population that, I mean, I don't really know what they believe, but I know that they're really not on board with the reincarnation thing. Like, they don't think that souls, some people don't even think they're souls, they just think that they're humans that are going to die and then that's it. When do you see that changing? I mean, that's individual experience, I guess.
It's definitely individual experience, but the more individual experience opens up into a space to where more people can experience this and feel it, the bigger the collective hits until it is majority rules. And then that's where the veil breaks. But it's just, let me tell you a story. I had this lady at an event that I was at who she had really bad hip pain. And so I combined physical therapy, massage, and energy work all together, as well as showing people how to activate inside of their bodies as we're doing this. And so it's way more effective than any other singular practice could be by itself. It's like, it's fun. So she had this really awful hip pain. And so I tracked it down right into the psoas level. So the psoas is the front of the spine, and it hooks into the leg down below, and then it comes and it hooks into every single vertebrae all the way up into the solar plexus. And like when you're riding your bike, that's the one that lifts your legs up. And say, for instance, somebody with lower back pain, they're always hunched over forwards, grabbing their back, but the tight muscle on the front's the one pulling them forward. Excuse me. So I track it down to this spot, and I'm just kind of energetically and physically palpating it. And I'm feeling this knot of muscle. And inside of it, there's this feeling of just sadness. And there's just like this bone deep aching sadness inside of there. And I keep on seeing these jade earrings. They had like this beautiful gold filigree on the backside, and it was like this jade pearl. And I keep on seeing these jade earrings and the sadness inside of this. And so I tell her, I was like, so it's the weirdest thing. I keep on seeing these jade earrings, and I'm just like feeling this, it's like sad. And she looks at me and she says, I hate jade. And I was like, what? And she says, I can't stand it. I'm in the same room as jade. I don't even need to know that somebody's got it out in the open. I can feel if it's hidden. I can't stand it. I got to get out. I was like, well, what is that all about? And I was like, well, underneath it is like this aching, wounded, just rawness. And she's like, I don't know what's going on, but my heart's starting to race and I'm sweating. And I was like, all right, I need you to start breathing, calm down, big breath, start to let it go. And so I start to fall down into this. And it's like I follow this hatred for this jade. And I'm like, why? And the next thing you know, I'm like breaking into this memory, almost like I'm seeing my own memory, but it was like a happening of this of her life in this space right here. Like I was literally watching it like a movie. So she was like an aristocratic, highborn Chinese noble clan family. And she had a life of just really, it was beautiful, absolutely just gorgeous. There was beautiful people, beautiful places, beautiful experiences. And she built a family, and then something happened and her clan they got the order to get wiped out. And I don't know the story around all of that. What I do know is from her perspective, she saw everybody get shot with arrows. The people were getting ridden down by the horses, and she was trying to run to her children, and she saw her children get killed right in front of her. And so she stopped right on the edge of the clearing, and then she took off running in the other direction. And she ran for like 6 or 7 years before they found her, but they like hunted her down like a dog the entire time.
Wow.
And like she was given these jade earrings that was the last thing that she finally had, that she actually had to sell in order to survive. And that was the last thing that they found because it was a gift from the royal family. And so as soon as those went into circulation, they tracked it down. That's how they found her. And so it was like these beautiful earrings the whole entire time. And then like they just had such like a hatred to them. And she kept them, and it was like this spite. It was like this revenge thing. Like, I'm gonna kill them with this whatever, and it was just like this hatred that she had for this gift that was given to her. And as I'm explaining this, she starts breaking down and she starts crying and telling me about how she can't ever leave her house without this bone deep fear that she's going to come back and her children aren't going to be there, that they're going to be gone. And she can't ever explain it. She's felt it her whole entire life. And so I was like, all right, well, do you want to keep this here? Like, I mean, this is obviously all connected. And she's like, no, this feels like crap. Like, all right, let's do it. And so I started walking her through how to activate the smile inside of it. And we lit this whole entire memory that it felt like a physical connection all the way back into it. It felt like almost like rubber that was like stretching all the way back to this memory.
Wow.
And so we cleaned all that space out, and then we let it go. And it was like this bone deep aching sadness just relaxed, and it fell in. And then there was just joy inside of it and softness and letting go. And her back clicked from her hips all the way up into the solar plexus. I mean, it just, as she was laying there, and her legs started to twitch a little bit, and then it jerked straight. And then she dropped and goes, what on earth was that? And I'm like, I don't know, stand up and walk. And she gets up and she's like, I don't feel it. It feels great.
Wow.
So she comes back the next day and she sees me, and she comes running over and she throws her arms around me crying and says, thank you so much. This is the first time in my life since I've had my children, I left the door and I did not cry. I did not fear for my children's safety. I didn't have to take them with me because I was scared they weren't going to be there when I came back. And I was just like, my goodness, if this right here isn't proof of a past life that was physically stuck inside of her body, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Like, this is a malady that she's had her entire adult life that she can remember ever since she was a little kid. Like it was, I believe it was about 12 or 13 when she felt this starting to, like, her hip kind of felt out of whack one day. And then it started to get more and more out of whack to the point to where, it hurt and it was tight and it was painful. And I believe she was about 37 or 38 when I met her that day. So,
wow.
That's.
See, I'm on board with the healing work. And I don't understand why other people aren't like, oh yeah, I have trauma just because I'm human. I don't know any human that doesn't have
Well, just think about the whole growing up process. I mean, you're splitting like teeth through your gums, and it's like this horrendously awful experience that makes you want to scream and cry. Your digestive system's starting for the first time, you know. God forbid you get the hiccups or you start burping and you get gas in there and it turns into colic. I mean, it is rough being human, not to mention the whole birthing process by itself. I mean, imagine trying to get squeezed out through a tiny little flesh tube, you know, so badly that it smashes your head down.
Or
just
doing the squeezing
in here. Yeah, exactly. You know, just getting in here is traumatic, you know, and from that space right there, we can definitely experience some very positive, powerful things. But, you know, at the bottom basic line of it, nature's brutal. Like, I mean, it's rough being here. You know, you ever have diarrhea or food poisoning that made you want to die? Like, that's not fun.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah. Well, so, I mean, how far off are we from like a collective understanding that everyone has this trauma and everyone needs to get it to heal?
So what you're talking about is the event. That's where all the veils are lifted and where all of a sudden we recognize the amazing amount of work that actually has to be done. Because right now we're ignorant to it. We haven't, well, some people do, you know, but for the vast majority,
not a lot.
Yeah, you know, and so like that's where the veil's lifted and suddenly people are not able to hide behind the words. You know, you're going to feel the sensations people are experiencing as they're talking. And so somebody who's lying to you, you're going to feel it as they're lying to you. And there's not going to be any doubt. It's going to create a huge imbalance polarity shift with humanity. And it's going to bring a lot of the stuff up to the surface. But how close are we? This depends on people. This is not a process happening to us. This is a process that we are actively creating. So let's think about the earth in terms of density. So we have clean open energy. This is like liquid. It's like air. It's flowing. There's nothing to, you know, solidly grab a hold of. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we have density. It's like metal. It's hard to move. It's heavy. It's always pulling downwards. And you've got these two opposing forces to each other, which, well, they appear opposing. They're really, you know, duality and whatnot. But, yeah, exactly. You know, it's property. It's the property of the energy. But you've got a lot of it that built up. You know, like we're talking about generation after generation of nonstop warfare, genocide. You know, it's been a really rough place to be for a long time. And this builds up into a lot of spaces to where not only is there a numbness of the energy that's being built up, but there is a almost a mastery inside of that numbness. You know, humankind right now, we are at the pinnacle of pure black magic. You know, you think about somebody with hate in your heart, you're connecting into that person and you're creating that energetic connection right there to them of very dense, very heavy energy that if they have something inside of them that's resonant with that feeling of hatred that they haven't purged, that they haven't cleared, it's going to hook right into it. And that those two dense energies are going to hook together. And suddenly you have this cord with this person, you know, and this happens with people all the time. Like, you know, well, I ghosted my family. I haven't talked to them in like 6 years. And well, it doesn't matter. That's like verbal communication. You still think about them all the time with such hatred about why you left. And, you know, like that right there, it's still a very, very deep connection. Now you compound this generation after generation, it overflows. It fills the entire planet to the point to where the planet can't maintain this space in this high vibratory level. And then suddenly it's heavy enough to, it dropped. And that's the fall. You know, they talk about this in the Bible where, you know, everything fell, like a third of the angels fell. Well, it was because, well, that too. But like, the whole reason there was a serpent in the garden to even talk to Adam and Eve, you know, it was like a third of the host of angels that, quote, fell to earth.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't that they fell physically, like they got thrown down to the ground. It was that they were way up here in this high vibratory level because Lucifer, he was the light bearer, you know, he was like the chosen of God. He was like the right-hand guy, you know, and then all of a sudden this light bearer fell down into that dense space. And, you know, it's the same exact thing. It was like that fall, that creation of that density that on the physical planet that made such a shockwave on the energy lines, it quarantined us. It dropped us into a pocket where time exists the way that it does now because it never used to be non-linear. Or never used to be linear. It was always non-linear. It was an experience where we could pick and choose whatever we wanted that we felt the flavor for. And this is why we're here now, because it's like this big dense ball of metal that this water, this air on the outside can't get through. And so you had to teleport inside. And from inside of there, you had to go through so much that stripped everything of what you were away, that you were left with nothing but the core. There was no memory of who you were. There was no understanding of who you were. There was just a recognition that this A feels right and B, this doesn't. And that's it.
Yeah.
And we've had to navigate our way through it. And so we've been picking and putting all these pieces back together, recognizing the game that we didn't even know that we were playing, and then recognizing the rules to it. And, through observation and experimentation and understanding, recognizing more importantly what we can do about it, and then expanding out, cleaning out, finding those places that are dense and pulling down and heavy, and making pockets that are clean enough for us to reach all the way out where they're reaching in. And right now it's almost like we've got two electrodes. These are very, very highly charged pieces of metal that the closer they get, the more that ion bridge builds until zap, it connects in. And it's the same exact thing that's going on right now. The more we clean out, the more we activate, the stronger we lift, the more joy we're experiencing, the more connection we're experiencing, the closer we get to that space. And it's happening in bits and pieces around the world in very, very isolated spaces. Almost kind of like it's like pre-trials. It's like the engine's getting started, right, but it's got to get warmed up, and you got to get the kinks out, and you got to figure everything out that's going on before it gets out the door and actually starts going.
Yeah.
And it's but that massive worldwide thing, as crazy as everything is right now, there's a reason. It's bringing all that garbage up to the surface, and we are going to see implosions, but at the same time we are also going to see a release on a massive, massive level, because people are just going to be over it. They're going to be at war for so long that they're like, you know what, I can't do this anymore. It's time to put the sword up. And from there, we're going to start recognizing a different space. It's the same process a lot of us had to go through, but it's planetary.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to hit on next, because like I got into massage therapy, and I was meeting these healers and energy workers and stuff like that. And I just like, I love these people. Like, why can't we create a world where this is going on?
Yeah.
But I came from an athletic background. So I'm kind of at the age now where I am revisiting some people that I met in that athletic world. And I can tell that they have this just hard belief that it's survival of the fittest in this world.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're going to be stuck in that paradigm if you believe that this is survival of the fittest. But I'm kind of like, I see what you're saying. It does seem like it's survival of the fittest here, but I'm just saying, like, I don't want to, how can we bust through to the next?
Well, we already have the capability of it. There's a reason why there's suffering on our planet. Like, when we spend $600 billion on military defense every month, and all it takes is $30 billion one time to end world hunger and poverty forever, like, there's a reason for it. And like, what we can't do is sit here and focus on those problems. We know those problems are there, and we can go into why those problems are there all we want, but we got to create solutions. And if it's survival of the fittest, and that's the program that's going on right now, then, well, we have to create a system that is not survival of the fittest. This is where the problem starts running into, it's the real world stuff that takes a lot of work that people just don't want to do,
Right.
So,
right.
Like, that's
or they don't see, they feel like, if I don't have this sword and fight for my survival, my life is going to get worse, and I just like, I don't want that to be true. It's like that with money too. Like, people feel like they need to fight for money in order to have a good life.
Yes.
And it's just like, I'm at a loss for how to help these people, and I'm kind of in that same boat too, because
we got to come together. We got to bring the tribe.
We got to have these conversations, I guess. Yeah.
And that's the thing, is if enough of us come together to start creating, like 150 people can make their own town, make their own laws, like, you can literally separate yourself away from everything on the outside. And, there's still things that you'd have to capitulate with. But for the most part, when you have, like, quote, a town that works harmoniously together, that is self-sustaining, that has everything that they need, we can go back to basics if we really have to. And we can create food, water, and shelter for people who could then go out into the world, and like that right there, everybody has their own place, their own niche. And like right now, what we've got is a whole bunch of frogs and birds and fish and antelope trying to be elephants, like,
Right.
and it just, they don't fit there. And what we're trying to do is smash everybody into these little boxes. And some people are hearth keepers. They love tending the land. They love being at the house. They love all of that. Like the introverted people that love projects. Like those are the perfect people to create the foundation for where the extroverts go out and do whatever they need to in the world to bring income back to the place. But regardless of whether or not, you've got timber, you've got food, you've got shelter,
Right.
you've got everything that you need right there off of the land that can sustain you. And from there, we can grow out. And so we've got to start creating systems that sustain people instead of
Yeah.
vampire off of them.
Right.
And once you see the quality of this, like that's the solution. You then take the solution out into the world at large. That's what fixes it.
But something that just popped up was I remember being on athletic teams like football and basketball and stuff, and having the coach say, we're only as strong as our weakest link. And I'm like, where's that? Why don't we think like that as a planet? Like us as a population that inhabits the earth, we're only going to be as strong as our weakest link. So what's the holdup from?
That's because you've created an isolated collective. You created this brotherhood of the football team. And this is us, everybody else is them. And so like what we've got to do is start spreading that collection out, like the feelings that you would experience if you saw, a family member of yours homeless on the street begging for food, like something like that right there. If you experience that when you saw somebody who was not your child, who was not your mother, who was not your father, like who was experiencing that, that's where we've got to start going. But there's a lot of trauma in the way. There's a lot of healing that has to be done. And there's some really beautiful people on our planet right now. There really, really are. But there's also a lot of really, really messed up people. And it's through no fault of their own, honestly. It's like a system that, it's like somebody pushed over a rock at the top of the mountain. The next thing you know, there's a landslide that took out the town. It's like, oops, like we can't stop that now. It's too late.
Right.
That's kind of where we're at.
That makes me think of this movie, The Joker. Or I think it's just called Joker. Joaquin Phoenix played the Joker. And it's like the origin story of that villain. And through the movie, you see like, oh, the city actually created the villain just from like how it was treated and stuff like that. I really like that movie. It's kind of hard to watch though, because it's like, man, that hit close to home,
Yeah.
So,
and that's it. That's the environment. It's the experience. And then if you've got the environment and the experience and the genetic predisposition, voila, new program.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, you're one of those people that's going to help guide us into a new paradigm, I feel like. So yeah, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I'm going to put links to your websites and everything like that, but do you need to plug anything? Do you have any programs or workshops coming up or?
Yes, I hold a monthly third eye quest. It's a pineal pilgrimage where pretty much we energetically activate and we go and we explore whatever's pertinent for that point in time. We've gone in to the wildfires. We've cleaned out some of those things. COVID-19, we've gone in and seen what that looked like from an existential perspective and cleaned out as much as we could there. There's all kinds of fun things that we do, and there's no telling what's going to happen. But what these classes do is it's always a tutorial on how to activate the energy for yourself. And these third eye quests, these pineal pilgrimages, what they do is simply give you a base that then you can look back on and go through as many times as you need to activate that energy frequency for yourself. Because I'm not a guru, not a master. I'm just a guy who was blessed to be stubborn enough to keep pushing, even though I couldn't feel it.
Yeah. So they sign up. They sign up for that through your website?
That's at unleashingnaturalhumanity.com. If you go to the events and sessions tab, it's there along with the foundations class, which is where I walk everybody through how to activate the energy. We clean ourselves out, and then we work on everybody else in the group. And so you start learning how to do distance work there.
That sounds pretty cool. And is it you connect over Zoom or something like
Zoom,
that?
Yeah, it's all Zoom. Yep.
Nice.
And time and distance means absolutely nothing, so it's all about just recognizing that your consciousness can do anything. And that's what's so fun about this class is because I have a bunch of newbies who come in who've never really done energy work before. By the time we're done, it's like, I totally felt like their bones as I was moving through it.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
It kind of sounds like a remote viewing type of exercise as well.
It's
I don't know.
remote doing.
Remote doing. Oh, okay. Nice. I like
Yeah.
that. Well, thank you so much. I'll let you know when I upload this, and I'll put
Thank
all
you.
the links to your stuff. And yeah, I really appreciate the time and your
Definitely.
words. So,
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
all right. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks again, Eric.
Yes, sir.
All right. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.